Let's cut the nonsense and get straight to it because the way you carry yourself in public says everything about who you are when no one's watching. You don't get a second chance at first impressions, and every move you make in public is a message. So listen up. If you're out there oversharing, picking fights, disrespecting wait staff, glued to your phone while someone's talking to you, yeah, we see you, and it's killing your presence. It's loud, it's messy, and it's silently screaming, I don't respect myself enough to be intentional. You want power? Start with self-awareness. You want respect? Start acting like you deserve it. The street, the cafe, the elevator, the line at the bank, that's your stage. And most people are performing with no script, no purpose, just habits they've never questioned. But not you. Not anymore. Because starting today, we're going to break down the 9 things you should never do in public. Not to impress others, but to protect your value, to protect your energy, to protect your standard. Let's get to work. You ever sit somewhere and hear a stranger start unloading their entire life story like it's an open mic therapy session, talking about their toxic ex, their job drama, that one friend who betrayed them, and you're just standing there holding your coffee thinking, why am I in this episode? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Oversharing, the habit of treating public spaces like confession booths, hoping that maybe someone will validate your pain, tell you you're right, or just listen. But here's the truth, nobody out there owes you emotional space. And the second you start spilling your internal chaos to people who haven't earned your trust, you're handing over power without even realizing it. See, not everyone claps because they care. Some people listen just so they can talk about you when you leave. Some people nod not because they're with you, but because they're collecting details. And in a world where perception is reality, the image you project, especially in public, sticks. When you're loud about your wounds, you're not healing. You're leaking. And that leak gets noticed more than you think. Look, this isn't about hiding your truth. This isn't about being fake, it's about knowing the time, the place, and the audience. There's a difference between being real and being reckless. You want real? Real is understanding that your story is sacred. Real is choosing who gets access. Real is knowing that your pain isn't a performance. People confuse openness with strength. But strength isn't in how loud you cry or how detailed your breakdown is. It's in the restraint. It's in the I'm handling it energy when everything's falling apart and you still carry yourself with grace. Because the world doesn't need to know what storm you're in to respect your presence. And trust me, when you walk into a room composed, calm, and collected, people feel it. They don't know your backstory, but they sense your depth. That's power. Now let's talk damage. You think venting to someone in line at the grocery store or ranting on speakerphone in a cafe is harmless? It's not. It chips away at your credibility. You start being known not as the person who holds it down, but the person who's always in some drama, always going through something, always emotionally bleeding out in the open. And that image, it sticks longer than your story. People aren't judging you for feeling, they're judging how you handle your feelings. Because let's be honest, everyone's going through something, but not everyone hands it out like flyers. When you carry your battles with dignity, people don't pity you, they respect you. They look at you like I don't know what they've been through, but I know they're built different. You want to impress in public? Be intentional with your silence, let people wonder. Let them guess. You don't need to tell the world who hurt you, how stressed you are, or what chaos you're navigating. Show them through how unshaken you remain. That's what leaves an impression. That's what builds your image. And here's the part nobody tells you. Oversharing is often a disguised cry for connection. You're hoping someone will relate, understand, validate. But here's the harsh truth. Strangers aren't your saviors. That depth you're looking for, that connection you crave, it won't come from vomiting your history to random people. It comes from curated trust, from building real, meaningful, earned relationships where your story is protected, not picked apart. If you don't value your own privacy, no one else will. If you treat your experiences like public content, expect public commentary. So tighten it up. Learn to sit with your discomfort in silence. Learn to breathe through the anxiety instead of broadcasting it. Learn to carry your battles without turning them into banners. The strongest people don't speak the loudest, they move the smartest. And every time you choose to keep something to yourself, you're reminding the world, I know who I am. I know what I've been through, and I don't need your permission to process it. You owe it to yourself to protect your peace like it's priceless because it is. You don't hand your emotional world to people who haven't earned the right to hold it. Your story is yours. Treat it like it matters because it does. You ever sit at a restaurant and watch someone snap their fingers at the waiter like they're calling a dog? Or maybe you've seen it, someone barking orders, rolling their eyes, tossing attitude like they're above it all. Let me make something crystal clear. How you treat people who can't benefit you directly is a mirror, a full, unfiltered, raw reflection of your character. You don't need a spotlight to see who someone really is. You just need to watch how they treat those with less power. That's the truth right there. You're not a high-value human because of your clothes, your car, or your bank account. That's surface level noise. Real value is built in the quiet moments, the ones nobody claps for, holding the door open, saying thank you, making eye contact with the barista, giving a genuine smile to the janitor. Those are the moments that define you. That's where your reputation is being written. Disrespect isn't loud just when it's shouted, it's loud when it's felt. A smirk, a cold shoulder, a dismissive tone. These things don't go unnoticed. They land heavy, they leave impact, and they echo longer than you think. You think the server you brushed off doesn't feel that? You think the security guard you ignored didn't clock it? They did, and so did everyone watching, because someone's always watching. Don't get it twisted. Respect isn't transactional. It's not something you only offer to people who wear suits, who have titles, who walk in with status. Respect is who you are when you think there's nothing to gain. That's when it counts. And when you get this right, you carry yourself with a quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove I'm better than you to feel valuable. The moment you belittle someone in public, you don't just shrink them, you shrink yourself. You don't look powerful, you look pathetic, insecure, small. Because real power doesn't need to flex. Real power uplifts, it steadies, it holds space. You want to show the world what you're made of? Start by making people feel seen. You walk into a room and treat everyone with equal importance. That's presence, that's grace, and people feel that. They don't remember what you wore, they remember how you made them feel. That's the legacy you're building every single time you open your mouth or choose not to. Let's talk deeper. Sometimes the disrespect isn't intentional, maybe it's unconscious. You're distracted, you're in a rush, you're caught up in your own problems. But listen, those are the moments where self-awareness matters. You have a responsibility to check your energy, to make sure you're not spreading negativity just because you're having a rough day. That cashier didn't deserve your attitude. That delivery guy didn't cause your stress. Own your energy. Protect your presence. Because here's the real game. People are drawn to those who make them feel respected. That's influence. That's charisma. It's not in the volume of your voice, it's in the weight of your presence. And when you move with that kind of awareness, doors open, opportunities follow. People want to be around you, not because of what you have, but because of how you make them feel. That's what separates the forgettable from the unforgettable. Let this sink in. If someone's working a job to make ends meet, serving tables, sweeping floors, answering phones, showing up in uniform, they are grinding, and they deserve respect, period. No hierarchy, no excuses, no ego. Because if you were in their shoes, if you ever had to hustle to survive, you'd pray for grace too. So give it, freely, fully, consistently. At the end of the day, character isn't what you post. It's not what you say when people are watching. It's what you live when nobody's handing out applause. And every moment in public is a test. You either show up like someone who honors people, or you expose yourself as someone who needs to tear others down to feel tall. Respect isn't earned by demanding it, it's earned by giving it. So give it. To the person at the drive-through window, to the old man crossing the street, to the young girl working her first job, to everyone. Because when you respect people deeply and publicly, you don't just build trust, you build a reputation that leads without saying a word. You ever walk into a room and instantly clock the one person doing too much? Loud laugh, center of attention, always talking about themselves, stirring up drama like it's a full-time job. Yeah, that person. They're not confident, they're starving for validation, and it's obvious. See, a lot of people think if they make noise, people will respect them. If they show off, people will admire them. If they stir the pot, people will pay attention. And sure, maybe for a minute they will. But respect earned through chaos? That's short-term. That's shallow. That's not real. You want to know what's real? Control, stillness, presence. That quiet confidence that doesn't need applause because it already knows its worth. That energy you carry when you walk into a room and don't have to say anything, but people still feel you. That's not accidental. That's intentional. But the world's trained you differently, right? Post more, share more, be louder, show you're important, get noticed, be seen, and it tricks you into thinking that validation means value. It doesn't. It just means you're addicted to approval. And let me be honest with you, approval is the cheapest drug out there. You get high off a like, a compliment, a laugh, but then what? You crash, you overthink, you perform again. It's a cycle, and it's exhausting. The real ones don't perform, they own their space, they move with purpose, not noise. They're not out here proving, they're just being. You want to command attention? Don't chase it. Let it find you through your actions, your presence, your self-discipline. Because when you seek attention, it runs. But when you stand firm in who you are, attention gravitates. There's a difference between confidence and chaos. One speaks, the other screams. One inspires, the other drains. You ever meet someone who talks big but says nothing? Just fluff. All surface, no depth. And then there's that one person who barely says a word, but when they do, everyone leans in. That's the level you want to be on. That's what you should aim for. Don't be the walking circus, be the standard. When you're always trying to be seen, you lose sight of yourself. You start shifting, bending, becoming what you think people want, instead of just being who you actually are. And let me tell you, authenticity is louder than any performance. You don't need to prove your confidence, just live it. It shows in how you sit, how you listen, how you carry silence. It shows in the restraint to not jump into every conversation, in the power to observe instead of always react. You don't need to laugh the loudest or talk the most to be noticed. In fact, the most powerful person in the room is usually the one watching, absorbing, calculating, not performing. But what if you've been that person? What if you've been loud, dramatic, always needing a spotlight just to feel like you matter? That's okay. Own it, forgive it, but change it. Because once you realize you don't need that noise, life gets quiet, and in that quiet you grow. That's where clarity lives. That's where confidence builds. Start small. Next time you feel the urge to overshare just to feel seen, pause. Next time you feel like you have to make a joke to fill silence, breathe. Next time someone tries to drag you into drama, walk away. These aren't passive moves, they're powerful ones. They say, I know my worth, and I don't need to sell it for applause. Look, the world is full of performers, full of people chasing claps, likes, laughs, validation. Don't be one of them. Be the one who doesn't need a stage to be seen. Be the one who walks in silent but still steals the room. Not because they demand attention, but because they deserve it. That's the difference. That's real power. You ever see two people arguing in public, voices raised, hands flying, faces red, and you feel that secondhand embarrassment crawl up your spine? You don't even know them, but you instantly know one thing: they've lost control of their emotions, their image, and their power. That's what a public argument does. It strips you down, it exposes your triggers, it hands over your dignity to the crowd like a free show. And the worst part? You think you're winning, you think raising your voice is strength, but all people really see is weakness on display. Let's be real, public arguments don't make you look right, they make you look rattled. They say, I can't manage myself, so I'll try to manage you instead. They don't showcase confidence, they expose instability. You could be 100% right in that argument, but the second you let it erupt in public, you've already lost. Because power isn't about being loud, it's about being level, composed, calm, focused. That's what real strength looks like. Every time you get baited into a public scene, you're giving someone else the keys to your image. You're letting your emotions drive, and emotions, they're reckless drivers. They don't care about reputation, they don't care about dignity, they care about winning in the moment. But what do you actually win? The last word? A few claps from strangers who love a little drama? That's not power, that's cheap noise. That's fast food for the ego, and it'll leave you starving after the adrenaline wears off. You don't have to prove your point in public to be heard. The strongest move you can make when someone's trying to drag you into chaos is to pause, breathe, choose silence. That's not weakness, it's control. It's you saying, I'm not handing my piece over for free, and people feel that. They might not say it out loud, but when you keep your cool while someone else is losing theirs, everyone knows who really has the upper hand. And here's the kicker. Public arguments aren't just bad for your image, they're poison for your relationships. Once people see you explode in front of others, they stop seeing you the same way. They question your emotional stability. They question how safe it is to confront you. They tiptoe, and that kills trust. It builds walls. It puts distance between you and the people who used to lean in, because no one wants to be around someone who turns every disagreement into a battlefield. But let's not act like you're perfect. None of us are. We've all had moments where the heat got to us, where the wrong word slipped, where the volume rose before we even realized it. That's human. What matters is what you do next. Do you learn? Do you evolve? Or do you stay stuck in the same cycle of emotional outbursts, calling it just how I am? Let me offer you something better. Next time you feel it rising, that heat in your chest, that itch in your throat, that fire in your gut, don't run with it. Observe it, own it, and then decide, is this moment worth my energy, my respect, my peace? 99 times out of 100, the answer is no. Because most public arguments aren't about truth, they're about ego. Two people trying to be heard over each other instead of listening. Two people trying to win instead of understand. You want to win for real? Don't play the game, walk away from it entirely. And if you've got something to say that truly matters, say it in private, say it with composure, say it in a way that elevates the conversation instead of escalating the tension, because that's where real resolution happens. Not in the street, not at the party, not at the restaurant table with an audience, but in the quiet, controlled spaces where both people feel safe, heard, and respected. So stop letting your emotions turn into a performance. Stop handing over your presence to people who aren't even worth the reaction. You're better than that. You're built for more than just being right, you're built for being solid, unshaken, strategic. Someone who doesn't argue with noise but leads with discipline. That's where the respect is. That's where the power lives. You ever walk into a space and instantly feel the tension someone else brings with them? That heavy energy, that oblivious behavior, that sense that someone just doesn't care how their presence is affecting the room. That's what a lack of social awareness does. It turns people off before you've even said a word. And here's the part that stings. Most people who lack it don't even realize they're the problem. They're too caught up in their world to see the ripple they're creating in everyone else's. Let's get this straight. Public space is shared space. It's not your living room. It's not your personal stage. When you're out in the world, you're not just representing yourself, you're shaping how others experience the moment. Your actions, your voice, your body language, it all sends signals. And when you ignore the people around you, when you bulldoze through a crowd, speak loudly on your phone, block pathways, or make others uncomfortable without even blinking, you're telling the world you matter and they don't. That's not just rude, it's disrespect at its most silent and sneaky level. Social awareness is about reading the room, and not just the big cues, the subtle ones, the uncomfortable shift, the half-second glance, the way someone's posture changes when your energy enters. You catch those signals when you're paying attention, and when you don't, you become the problem everyone's too polite to correct. And don't confuse being bold with being blind. You can be confident without being inconsiderate. You can walk tall without walking over people. The world doesn't need more loud voices, it needs more present ones. People who are tuned in. People who recognize that respect isn't just about words, it's about awareness. Being mindful of your impact in real time. Now, let's talk about the scroll zombies. The people who walk through crowded spaces with their faces buried in their phones, completely unaware they're in the way. Or the ones blasting music through speakers in public, turning every shared space into their personal concert. That's not confidence. That's carelessness. That's a lack of maturity disguised as being myself. No, being yourself shouldn't cost other people their peace. And here's what makes it worse. The world will rarely call you out. Most people won't say anything. They'll just judge. Quietly. They'll label you. They'll form a story about who you are and you won't even know it's being written. That's the danger of being socially unaware. It's not just that you're bothering people, it's that you're building a reputation without realizing it. And once that reputation sticks, it's hard to shake. But flip it. Let's say you do carry awareness. You notice the person behind you, so you hold the door. You lower your voice in a quiet cafe. You step aside when you're blocking the aisle. These aren't small things. These are big moves disguised as small actions. They speak volumes about your discipline, your emotional intelligence, and your respect for others. And guess what? People remember that. They respect that. Because social awareness is rare and rare is valuable. And I get it, you've got your own problems, your own stress, your own schedule. But that's no excuse to make someone else's day harder because you didn't take 2 seconds to look up, to listen, to think. You're not the only one in the room. And the moment you realize that, you move differently. You start leading with consideration instead of convenience. Want to stand out in public? Want to be the person people gravitate toward instead of avoid? Get locked in, observe, feel the space. Adjust your volume, your energy, your posture, based on where you are. That's not being fake, that's being intentional. That's not losing yourself, it's elevating your presence. Because when you respect the space you share, you earn silent credibility. You don't need to speak to be noticed. You don't need to perform to be respected. You just need to carry yourself with enough awareness to say, I see you, I feel you, and I'm not here to make it harder. That's how you lead without a title. That's how you own a room without a word. You want to be remembered for the right reasons? Learn to move through public spaces like someone who gets it, someone who knows that your presence should lift the room, not drain it. That's not just manners, that's leadership, and the world is desperate for more of it. Here's the bottom line. Every move you make in public is telling the world who you are without you saying a word. You don't get to explain your intentions, defend your attitude, or justify your actions. People only see the result. So you've got 2 choices: walk through life reactive, messy, and unaware, or move with discipline, awareness, and power. Because it's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional, about knowing when to speak and when to hold back, about treating every person with respect, even when no one's watching, about carrying yourself in a way that says, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it. You want to be respected? Then master yourself, control your energy, protect your presence, because loud isn't power, drama isn't strength, and chaos never commands respect. The people who truly own the room don't do it by shouting, they do it by leading, quietly, consistently, and without apology. So don't just be seen, be felt. Don't just exist in public, lead in it, every day, every space.